Most men who receive a package with no return address treat it like junk mail. They set it aside. They forget about it. They move on with the particular kind of forward momentum that comes from not asking questions you don't want answered. Major James Rourke wasn't most men. He stood in his office at Fort Bragg at 6 in the morning with a manila envelope in his hands and a decision forming in the part of his brain that had kept him alive through 12 years of Delta Force operations. The envelope was thin, light, the kind of light that suggests paper, not weight, not threat. But the absence of a return address told a different story. So did the courier service tracking number, the kind that costs extra, the kind that requires a signature, the kind that means someone wanted proof of delivery. Rourke set the envelope on his desk next to a file marked Training Accident Review and looked at both of them for a moment like he was deciding which problem to solve first. The file was routine. Lance Corporal Mitchell, 21 years old, live fire exercise gone wrong, autopsy pending, review. 3 months of paperwork condensed into 47 pages that would probably tell him nothing he didn't already know. The military had a specific way of making tragedy boring. Forms in triplicate. Passive voice, the careful construction of inevitability. He opened the file first because that was the job. J. AG Investigator. Judge Advocate General's Office. The person they send when something needs to look investigated without actually being investigated. He'd been doing this for 2 years now. 2 years since his last deployment. 2 years since his son Ethan died in a training accident that looked exactly like the one in the file in front of him now. 2 years of asking questions no one wanted to answer. The Mitchell file had the same structure, same passive language. Incident occurred at 14:30 hours during routine qualification exercise. Routine, that word showed up 6 times in the first 2 pages. Routine qualified the exercise. Routine described the weather. Routine explained the weapon malfunction that put a round through Mitchell's vest at close range. Routine, 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 like if they said it enough times it would become true. Rourke had read enough of these reports to know what routine actually meant. It meant don't look closer. It meant accept the explanation. It meant this is the story we're telling and the story we're keeping, and if you have a problem with that, Major, perhaps you'd like to reconsider your career trajectory. He flipped to the autopsy summary. Medical examiner Captain Wilkins. Cause of death, exsanguination from thoracic cavity trauma. Time of death estimated at 14:55 hours. 25 minutes after the incident. 25 minutes of bleeding out in a North Carolina training field while medics worked on him with the kind of desperate competence that doesn't show up in passive voice. Rourke picked up his phone, dialed the medical examiner's office. 3 rings. 4. Voicemail. He hung up. Dialed again. This time someone picked up on the second ring, but it wasn't Wilkins. It was a corpsman who sounded young and nervous and definitely not authorized to answer questions about ongoing investigations. I need to speak with Captain Wilkins. He's not available, sir. When will he be available? I'm not sure, sir. He's on leave. Leave. Yes, sir. Rourke looked at the file, looked at the date. The autopsy report was dated 4 days ago. 4 days ago, Wilkins was signing off on cause of death, and now he was on leave. Sudden leave. The kind of leave that happens when someone decides you've done your job and now you need to go away for a while so you don't talk about it. Tell him Major Rourke called. Tell him I have questions about the Mitchell case. The corpsman's voice got quieter. Sir, I'm not sure that's... Just tell him. Rourke hung up. He sat there for a moment with the file open and the phone in his hand and the familiar weight of something wrong settling into his chest. He'd felt this weight before. Felt it the day they told him about Ethan. Felt it during the memorial service where they handed him a folded flag and a story that didn't add up. Felt it every time he tried to pull Ethan's service record and found sections redacted for reasons no one could explain. Training accident. That's what they'd told him. Live fire exercise. Weapon malfunction. The same passive voice. The same routine tragedy. Except Ethan had been a Marine for 4 years. He'd qualified expert marksman. He'd served a deployment in Afghanistan. He knew weapons. He knew safety protocols. He knew better. And 3 weeks before he died, he'd called Rourke and asked a question that didn't make sense at the time, but made perfect sense now in retrospect. Dad, if you found out the military was doing something illegal, something that affected other soldiers, what would you do? Rourke had been in his car, driving back from a briefing. He'd put the phone on speaker and given his son the answer he thought he wanted to hear. I'd report it through proper channels. Chain of command. That's what the system is for. Ethan had been quiet for a moment. Then, what if the chain of command was the problem? Then you go higher, Inspector General. Congressional oversight. There are mechanisms. Another pause, longer this time. And if those mechanisms were compromised? Rourke had pulled over, put the car in park. Ethan, what's going on? Nothing, just a hypothetical. Ethics class assignment, but it wasn't nothing, and it wasn't hypothetical. And 3 weeks later, Ethan was dead, and Rourke was holding a flag in a story he didn't believe, and a hole in his chest that hadn't closed in 2 years. He looked at the manila envelope again, picked it up. The weight was wrong. Too light for documents, but too heavy for a single sheet. He ran his finger along the seal. No bumps, no wires, no bulk that suggested anything other than paper. He'd opened enough suspicious packages in his career to know what a threat felt like. This wasn't a threat. This was information. And information was more dangerous than explosives because you couldn't defuse it. You could only decide what to do with it once you knew. He opened the envelope. Inside was a USB drive. Small, black, generic. The kind you could buy at any electronics store for $10. No label, no marking, just smooth plastic and a memory chip that could hold anything from vacation photos to classified intelligence. Also inside was a note, handwritten, blue ink, neat cursive that belonged to someone who'd learned to write before computers made penmanship obsolete. 47 names, your son is number 23, SV. Rourke read it 3 times, turned the paper over. Nothing on the back, turned it back. 47 names, your son is number 23, SV initials. Not a signature. Someone who wanted him to know but didn't want to be known. Someone who knew about Ethan. Someone who knew Rourke would care. He looked at the USB drive, held it between his thumb and forefinger like it was a bullet he was deciding whether to load. His computer sat on the desk. Government issued, secure network. Protocol said any unauthorized device needed to go through IT security before being accessed on a military system. Protocol said he should log this as potential intelligence, fill out a form, wait 48 hours for clearance. Protocol could go to hell. He plugged the drive into his computer. A folder appeared. Single file, encrypted, password protected. The file name was just a date, March 15th, 2017. The day Ethan died. Then March 15th, 2 years ago today. The calendar on Rourke's desk showed March 15th, 2019. 2 years to the day since the training accident that wasn't an accident. 2 years of living with questions. 2 years of this manila envelope finding him on this specific morning. Not a coincidence. Rourke tried the obvious password first. Ethan's name. Access denied. Tried Ethan's birthday. Access denied. Tried his own birthday. Access denied. Tried the date again in different formats. Day, month, year. Year, month, day. All denied. He sat back, looked at the note again. Your son is number 23. He typed 23. Access denied. Typed 23. Access denied. Typed the words out. 23. Still denied. Then he tried Ethan's birthday again, but this time just the day. The 15th. Access denied. Just the month. March. The 3rd month. He typed 031517, March 15th, 2017. 6 digits. The day his son died. The file opened. It was a spreadsheet. Excel. 47 rows, 6 columns, names in the first column, ranks in the second, units in the third, dates in the fourth, status in the fifth, actual fate in the sixth. Rourke scrolled to row 23. Ethan Rourke, Lance Corporal, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, March 15th, 2017. Status, training accident. Actual fate, redacted. He stared at the word redacted like it was a foreign language he was trying to translate. Redacted meant classified. Redacted meant someone decided the truth was more dangerous than the lie. Redacted meant his son's death wasn't an accident. It was something else. Something that required a cover story and a password-protected file and a note from someone with the initials SV who thought Rourke deserved to know. He scrolled up. Row 1, Sergeant First Class David Chen, Special Forces, Task Force Phantom, February 12th, 2019. Status, killed in action. Actual fate, redacted. Row 2, Staff Sergeant Jennifer Morrison. Rangers, Task Force Phantom. February 12, 2019. Status, killed in action. Actual fate, redacted. Task Force Phantom. Rourke knew that name. Everyone in Special Operations knew that name, even if they weren't supposed to. Multi-service element. Black budget. The kind of unit that didn't exist on paper but existed everywhere that mattered. They'd operated in Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, places that required deniability and operators who could disappear if things went wrong. Things had gone wrong in 2019. Kandahar province, an operation that wasn't supposed to happen according to records that didn't exist. 2KIA. Officially, the unit was decommissioned 3 months later. Gone. Erased from the organizational charts like it had never been there at all. Except according to this spreadsheet, there were more than 2 casualties. There were 47 soldiers across 12 years listed as training accidents or KYA or transferred or medically discharged. 47 names that all had one thing in common. Status was public. Actual fate was redacted. Rourke's phone rang. He looked at the screen. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Then he remembered the corpsman's voice getting quiet when he'd asked about Captain Wilkins. He remembered the way information traveled in the military. Fast, efficient, impossible to contain once it started moving. He answered, Major Rourke. Silence for 3 seconds. Then a woman's voice. Quiet, careful. The quality of quiet that comes from speaking in places where being overheard can get you killed. You got the package. Who is this? Did you open the file? I asked who this is. Sarah Vance, Captain, used to be, not anymore. SV Captain Sarah Vance. Rourke pulled up a mental roster of names he'd worked with over the years. Vance didn't ring a bell, but Captain suggested medical or logistics or intelligence. Someone who'd been close enough to operations to know things, but not close enough to be operational. You sent me a list of dead soldiers. Not dead, that's the point. Rourke looked at the spreadsheet, at row 23, at the word redacted next to his son's name. Explain. Not over the phone, not like this. I'm in Charleston, diner called Rosie's on King Street. Can you be there by 1400? 4 hours away, 8 hours round trip. He had meetings scheduled, reports due. The Mitchell file sitting on his desk waiting for a signature that would close the case and move it into the archive where it would gather dust next to all the other cases he'd closed without really investigating. I'll be there. She hung up without saying goodbye. Rourke sat there with the phone in his hand and the spreadsheet on his screen and a decision already made before he'd consciously decided to make it. He ejected the USB drive, pocketed it, closed the Mitchell file without signing it, grabbed his keys. He was halfway to the parking lot when he realized he hadn't told anyone he was leaving. Hadn't filed leave, hadn't cleared his schedule, hadn't done any of the things a JAG investigator was supposed to do before driving 4 hours to meet a stranger who claimed his dead son wasn't actually dead. He kept walking. The drive to Charleston was 4 hours of interstate and marsh grass and billboards advertising personal injury lawyers. Rourke didn't turn on the radio, didn't make calls, just drove with both hands on the wheel and his mind cycling through possibilities like he was planning an operation. Sarah Vance, Captain, former something, someone with access to classified information. Someone who knew about Task Force Phantom. Someone who knew about Ethan. Someone who was either telling the truth or running an operation of her own. He'd know which when he saw her face. Rosie's Diner sat on a corner in downtown Charleston with big windows and checkered floors and the kind of aggressively cheerful decor that suggested someone's grandmother had decorated it in 1970 and no one had bothered to update it since. Rourke parked 2 blocks away, walked the perimeter. Old Delta habits, assess approaches, identify exits, look for anything that didn't belong. Everything belonged. Tourists with cameras, college students with laptops, an old man reading a newspaper by the window, no one watching the door, no one sitting in cars, no one pretending not to notice him. He went inside. The diner smelled like coffee and grease and pie. A waitress who looked like she'd been working there since the decor was new pointed him toward a booth in the back without asking who he was looking for. Either he looked like military, or Vance had described him, or the waitress had seen enough clandestine meetings in her career to recognize one when it walked through the door. Sarah Vance sat in a corner booth with her back to the wall and a cup of coffee going cold in front of her. Mid-30s, brown hair pulled back, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, plain shirt, nothing that said military except the way she sat, straight spine, hands visible on the table, eyes tracking him from the moment he entered her line of sight. She didn't stand when he approached, didn't offer her hand, just nodded toward the seat across from her. Major Rourke, Captain Vance, not Captain anymore, just Sarah. He sat. The waitress appeared with coffee he hadn't ordered. He let her fill the cup and walk away before he spoke again. "You knew my son." "No." The answer landed flat. Definitive, not apologetic. "But you know who ordered his name erased." She picked up her coffee, put it down without drinking. "Do you want the truth or do you want closure? You can't have both." Rourke had heard versions of that question before, usually from intelligence officers trying to justify keeping secrets, usually followed by explanations about operational security and need to know and the greater good. He'd learned to recognize it as the preface to a lie wrapped in patriotism. But Sarah Vance didn't look like she was trying to justify anything. She looked like she was warning him. "I want the truth." She nodded once, like she'd expected that answer but wanted to hear him say it anyway. Then she reached into a bag next to her and pulled out a folder. Thin, dog-eared. The kind of folder that had been copied and recopied so many times the pages were starting to blur. Task Force Phantom, February 2019, Kandahar Province. 12 operators, 1 mission. Extract a high-value target from a compound 17 clicks outside the city. Intelligence said the target was alone. 2 guards maximum. Get in, get out. 40 minutes tops. She opened the folder, pushed a photo across the table. Grainy satellite imagery, a compound. Square buildings arranged around a courtyard. Typical Afghan construction, mud walls, flat roofs. The kind of place that looked like 100 other places unless you knew what you were looking for. Intelligence was wrong. 40 guards. Hardened position. Our team walked into an ambush 30 seconds after insertion. Rourke looked at the photo, at the compound, at the terrain around it. Open ground, no cover, a kill box. They called for extraction. They called for a lot of things. Extraction, air support, artillery. None of it came fast enough. Another photo. This one was a man, mid-20s, Asian features, sergeant stripes, face that looked too young for the rank, but eyes that looked too old for the face. Sergeant First Class David Chen, communications specialist. He was 300 meters from the compound when the ambush started. He had line of sight to the team. He also had line of sight to the mortar position the enemy was using to bracket the extraction zone. Sarah traced a line on the photo from Chen's position to the compound to a spot marked with a red X. He called in an airstrike on his own position, told the pilot to adjust fire 20 meters west. 20 meters west was where he was standing. He redirected a 500-pound bomb onto himself to take out the mortar team. Rourke knew what a 500-pound bomb did to a human body. He'd seen the craters, seen what was left after the explosion, usually nothing, sometimes pieces, never anything you could identify without DNA. The official record says he was killed in action. The official record says a lot of things. She pulled out another photo. This one was medical, a hospital bed, a body so wrapped in bandages it barely looked human. Tubes, monitors, the sterile white light of a field hospital struggling to keep someone alive who shouldn't be alive. "I was the medic on the extraction bird. I pulled him out of that crater 40 minutes after the strike. Third-degree burns over 60% of his body, collapsed lung, fractured skull, shrapnel in places shrapnel shouldn't be able to reach. But he was breathing." She tapped the photo. "He was breathing when we loaded him. He was breathing when we landed at Bagram. He was breathing when CIA took him off my bird and told me to file a KIA report." CIA. They needed him, or more accurately, they needed what he knew. Chen had been embedded with local assets for 6 months. He knew names, locations, networks, intelligence worth more than his life. So they took him, fixed him, kept him alive just enough to extract information. Rourke looked at the photo of Chen in the hospital bed, thought about what it took to survive a 500-pound bomb, thought about what it took to survive the kind of interrogation that followed. And then what? Then they erased him, filed the KYA report, sent his family a flag and a story, put him somewhere no one would look, and kept him there. For 4 years. For 4 years, she pulled the folder back, closed it, met his eyes with the kind of directness that said everything that came next was the part she'd been building toward. "Your son found out about it, about Chen, about the protocol they used to disappear him, about 46 others who'd been erased the same way. The number hit him like physics. 46 others, plus Ethan made 47. 47 rows on a spreadsheet. 47 names with redacted fates. How? I don't know. Maybe he stumbled onto records. Maybe someone told him. Maybe he was smart enough to notice patterns. What I know is he started asking questions. The wrong questions to the wrong people. And 3 weeks later, he died in a training accident that looked exactly like a training accident, except for one detail. She reached into her bag again, pulled out a single sheet of paper. Incident report. Ethan's incident report. The one Rourke had read so many times he could recite it from memory. Live fire exercise, weapon malfunction, round penetrated vest at close range. Time of death 14:55 hours, 25 minutes after the incident. She circled something on the page. A name in the witness section. Staff Sergeant Tyler Moss. Moss was there. He saw the whole thing. He also saw something the report doesn't mention. Rourke waited. He saw your son's finger move when they loaded him into the body bag. The diner kept moving around them. Waitress refilling coffee, tourists laughing at a nearby table, old man turning pages of his newspaper. Normal life continuing like the world hadn't just split open. You're telling me my son is alive. I'm telling you he didn't die in that training accident. What happened after, where they took him, whether he's still breathing now 2 years later, I don't know. But the protocol exists. Echo 7, Special Access Program, when they need to disappear an operator for intelligence purposes, they stage an accident. They file the paperwork. They bury an empty casket, and they put the operator somewhere no one will ever find them. She pushed a photograph across the table. Not a medical photo this time. A man in uniform, late 50s, hard face, colonel's eagles on his collar. Standing in what looked like a briefing room with a presentation screen behind him, showing a slide that read SAP, Echo 7 Operational Security Protocols. Colonel Marcus Kline, Head of Defense Department Special Access Programs. He's the one who signs the orders. He's the one who decides who gets erased and who gets buried for real. And 3 years ago, he pinned a medal on your son's uniform at a ceremony in Quantico. Rourke looked at the photo, at Kline's face, tried to remember the ceremony, tried to remember if he'd noticed anything wrong. But ceremonies were theater. Everyone wore masks. Everyone played their part. You couldn't tell the predators from the patriots when everyone was saluting. Why are you telling me this? Sarah Vance picked up her coffee, drank this time, the whole cup, like she needed the caffeine or the ritual or the moment to decide how much truth to give him. Because David Chen was my half-brother. Different fathers, same mother. She raised us both to believe some truths are worth dying for. David believed it enough to call an airstrike on himself. I believe it enough to spend 4 years documenting every Echo 7 case, so when I finally go public, they can't kill the story by killing me. She set the cup down, met his eyes. I have a daughter, 8 years old. She lives with my mother in Colombia because I can't take care of her and do what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is building evidence, records, testimonies, everything I need to force an Inspector General investigation. I'm almost there, but I need one more thing. What? I need someone with clearance and authority to force that investigation. I need someone who can't be dismissed as a whistleblower with an agenda. I need someone the system has to listen to. She pointed at him. I need you. Rourke looked at the folder, at the photos, at the spreadsheet he'd memorized on the drive down. 47 names, 47 families who'd buried empty caskets or accepted lies or spent years wondering why the story didn't add up. 47 soldiers who might be alive somewhere in the dark being used for purposes they'd never agreed to. His son might be one of them. What do you need me to do? Get 3 testimonies on record. Official testimonies. Sworn statements from witnesses who can verify that soldiers listed as KYMA or training accidents were seen alive after their supposed deaths. 3 testimonies trigger mandatory IG investigation. Federal law, they can't ignore it. And you have witnesses. I have 2, myself for Chen, Staff Sergeant Tyler Moss for your son. I need one more, someone from a different case, someone they can't discredit by saying we coordinated our stories. Rourke thought about the Mitchell file on his desk, thought about Captain Wilkins suddenly going on leave, thought about all the cases he'd closed over 2 years without really investigating, because investigating meant asking questions, and questions meant problems. Where's Moss now? Fort Benning, Georgia. They transferred him 3 weeks after your son's accident. Standard Echo 7 protocol, separate the witnesses, move them to different bases, make them harder to connect, harder to corroborate. He's been there 2 years. Infantry training cadre, keeps his head down, doesn't talk about what he saw. Will he talk to me? He owes your son his life. Ethan pulled him from a burning vehicle in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 2016. Moss remembers. And if he knows Ethan might still be alive, he'll talk. I'll find the third witness. Sarah nodded, started gathering her photos, then stopped. Looked at him with something that might have been pity or might have been recognition. Before you commit to this, you need to understand what you're starting. These people, Kline and whoever he answers to, they've been running Echo 7 for over a decade. They've disappeared 47 soldiers. They've lied to 47 families. They've built an entire infrastructure of falsified records and paid off witnesses and contingency plans for anyone who gets too close. You go after them, they will come after you. They will threaten you. They will threaten anyone you care about. And if threats don't work, they will erase you the same way they erased your son. She stood, pulled out cash, left it on the table next to her cold coffee. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I'm going underground, and you won't be able to find me. If you're in, meet me at these coordinates. She wrote on a napkin, GPS numbers, somewhere in South Carolina based on the formatting. If you're not in, burn everything I gave you and forget we met. She walked out. Rourke sat there with a napkin full of numbers and a folder full of evidence, and a decision that wasn't really a decision because he'd already made it the moment he opened that manila envelope. He looked at the photo of Colonel Kline again, at the presentation screen behind him. Echo 7, the program that had taken his son, the program that had taken 46 others, the program that was still running right now somewhere, erasing soldiers who got too close to secrets that couldn't be exposed. Rourke pulled out his phone, dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. Brennan, Commander Jack Brennan, former Delta, now stationed at Fort Carson running advanced tactics training for Ranger candidates. Rourke's best friend for 15 years. The man who'd stood next to him at Ethan's memorial service and said nothing because there was nothing to say. Jack, it's Rourke. Silence for 2 seconds. Then, you only call me when something's wrong. I need to ask you about Kandahar. February 2019, Task Force Phantom. The silence got longer this time. Heavier. The kind of silence that meant Brennan was deciding between lying and telling the truth and trying to figure out which one would cause less damage. That's classified. I know it's classified. I'm asking anyway. Why? Because I think my son died the same way David Chen died. Except Chen didn't die, and maybe Ethan didn't either. He heard Brennan moving, door closing, footsteps, the sound of someone finding privacy in a place where privacy was rare. Who told you about Chen? Sarah Vance says she was the medic on the extraction bird, says Chen is her half-brother. She was. He is. Different fathers, same mother. She pulled him out of that crater. I was there. I watched CIA take him away. I've been carrying that for 4 years. 2 sentences. But they confirmed everything. Brennan had been there. Brennan had seen Chen pulled from that crater. Brennan had watched CIA take him away. Brennan had kept the secret for 4 years. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ordered not to. Because the classification level was so high I couldn't even confirm the operation existed. Because I figured if you didn't know, you couldn't ask questions. And if you didn't ask questions, you'd stay safe. Safe from what? From the same thing that happened to Ethan. The words landed like a body. Heavy. Final. Confirming what Rourke had known since he opened that spreadsheet, but hadn't wanted to admit. You knew they took him. I knew he'd been asking about Echo 7. I knew that was dangerous. I tried to warn him. Tried to tell him to drop it without telling him why he should drop it. He didn't listen. And 3 weeks later, he was dead. Or disappeared. I never knew which. Never had clearance to find out. Brennan's voice cracked on the last sentence. Not much. Just enough to suggest 2 years of carrying guilt he couldn't confess. I'm going after them. Kline, Echo 7, all of it. That's suicide. That's justice. Justice gets you killed. You taught me that. Rourke looked at the napkin with the GPS coordinates. Thought about Sarah Vance going underground. Thought about 47 families living with lies. Thought about his son somewhere in the dark wondering if anyone was coming. Then I guess I'm updating the lesson. Are you in or out? Brennan was quiet for a long time. Rourke could hear him breathing, could picture him standing in some empty office at Fort Carson weighing duty against friendship, against the weight of a secret he'd been carrying since Kandahar. "Where do you need me?" "I'll send coordinates. 48 hours. I'll be there." Rourke hung up, finished his coffee, left cash on the table, walked out of the diner into Charleston afternoon sun that felt too bright for what he'd just learned. He got in his car, drove 3 blocks, pulled over. Then he opened the folder Sarah had left him and looked at all the photos again. Chen in the crater, Chen in the hospital bed, the compound in Kandahar, the satellite imagery showing exactly where everyone had been standing when the bomb fell. He thought about Ethan calling him 3 weeks before he died, asking about hypothetical ethics, questions that weren't hypothetical. Thought about teaching his son to stand up for what was right, even when it cost you. Thought about the last thing he'd said to Ethan before hanging up that call. There are always mechanisms. You just have to be willing to use them. Ethan had been willing, and they'd erased him for it. Rourke pulled out his phone, opened his email, started typing. Subject: Training Accident Investigation Request. Mitchell, Lance Corporal, requesting extension for additional witness interviews. He paused, deleted the email, opened a new one. Subject: Leave request. Personal emergency. Effective immediately. He sent it. Didn't wait for a response. Started the car, pulled back onto the road. He had 48 hours to get to those coordinates. 48 hours to decide if he was really willing to burn his career and risk his life for a chance at truth. His phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. "You're being followed. Black SUV, 2 cars back. Don't engage, just drive. More instructions coming." Rourke checked his mirrors. Black SUV, tinted windows, government plates. 2 cars back exactly like the message said. They'd been watching him since he left the diner. Maybe since before, maybe since the moment he'd opened that manila envelope this morning. He didn't speed up, didn't slow down, just kept driving at exactly the speed limit, with his hands loose on the wheel and his mind cycling through evasion protocols he hadn't used in 3 years. His phone buzzed again. Next exit, gas station park, go inside, leave phone in car. He took the exit, pulled into a gas station that looked like every gas station in America. Pumps, convenience store, bad coffee, and worse hot dogs. He parked, left his phone on the seat, went inside. The bathroom was at the back, single occupancy, lock on the door. When he came out 2 minutes later, there was a new phone sitting on the sink. Burner, prepaid, 1 text message already waiting. Coordinates changed. They know about the first location, new meet point attached. 48 hours just became 24. Vance. Rourke pocketed the new phone, left the bathroom, walked back to his car. The black SUV was gone, but he knew they'd be back, knew they were tracking him, knew that whatever he'd started by opening that envelope couldn't be stopped now. He got in his car, looked at his government phone still sitting on the seat, thought about everything on it: contacts, emails, GPS history, every call he'd made to Brennan, every search he'd run on Task Force Phantom. He powered it down, pulled the battery, threw both pieces in a trash can outside the gas station. Then he got back in his car and drove toward coordinates he'd never seen for a meeting that might get him killed to find out if his son was alive. The sun was setting behind him. 47 names were waiting in the dark ahead. And somewhere, Colonel Marcus Kline was watching screens and making calls and deciding what to do about a JAG investigator who just stopped following protocol. Rourke drove faster. The new coordinates led to a place that didn't exist on any map Rourke could find. 30 miles outside Columbia, South Carolina. Forest Service road that turned to gravel, that turned to dirt, that eventually stopped being road at all. He'd been driving for 6 hours on the burner phone's GPS, watching his mirrors for black SUVs that never appeared but probably didn't need to, because if they wanted to find him, they already knew where he was going. The sun had set 2 hours ago. Now it was just headlights and darkness and the particular kind of silence that comes from being far enough from civilization that your mistakes die with you. The GPS said he'd arrived, but there was nothing here. Just trees and a clearing barely wide enough to turn around. Rourke killed the engine, sat in the dark, counted to 60. Old habit. Give your eyes time to adjust. Give potential threats time to reveal themselves. Give yourself time to decide if you're really doing this. He got out of the car. The clearing was bigger than it looked, maybe 40 feet across, grass worn down and tire tracks that suggested other vehicles had been here recently. At the far end, barely visible in the ambient moonlight, A cabin. Small. Single story. The kind of structure hunters build when they want shelter but don't want luxury. No lights showing in the windows. No smoke from the chimney. Nothing to suggest anyone was home. Rourke approached from an angle. Not direct, never direct. He'd walked up to too many buildings that looked empty and weren't. The cabin had a porch, 2 steps, 1 window on either side of a door that hung slightly crooked in its frame. He could see through the windows now. Empty room, table, chairs, wood stove in the corner. He knocked twice. No answer. Tried the door, unlocked. Inside smelled like old wood and gun oil, and the particular staleness of a place that gets used occasionally but never lived in. His eyes had adjusted enough to make out details now. The table had papers on it, maps. The chairs were pulled out like people had been sitting here recently. The wood stove was cold, but there were fresh ashes in it. A flashlight clicked on behind him. "Don't turn around, Major. Just listen." Sarah Vance's voice, but different than it had been at the diner. Harder. The kind of hard that comes from holding a weapon and meaning to use it if necessary. "I'm alone," Rourke said. "I know. I've been watching you since you hit the county road. Wanted to make sure no one was following." "And? You're clean. For now, you can turn around." He turned. She stood in the doorway with a tactical flashlight in one hand and a Glock in the other. Both pointed at the floor, now but ready. She'd changed clothes since the diner. Cargo pants, dark jacket, hair pulled back tighter. She looked like she'd spent the last 24 hours not sleep and moving and staying ahead of something. "They followed me in Charleston," Rourke said. "Black SUV, government plates. Lost them at a gas station when you sent the new phone." "They didn't lose you. You lost your government phone. They're tracking that now, thinking you're still carrying it. Bought us maybe 12 hours before they triangulate where it stopped moving and realize you ditched it." She holstered the Glock, moved past him to the table, started gathering the maps. "Brennan's on his way. Should be here within the hour. We need to move fast." "Move where?" "Fort Benning, Georgia. That's where we find our third witness." She spread out one of the maps. Military installation layout. Barracks marked. Training ranges outlined. One building circled in red marker. "Staff Sergeant Tyler Moss. He's the one who saw your son's finger move in the body bag. He's stationed at Benning now. Infantry training cadre. We need his testimony on record before Kline realizes what we're doing and moves him somewhere we can't reach him." Rourke looked at the map, at the circled building, at the route marked from here to there. 12 hours of driving through the night to reach a soldier who might not want to talk and definitely wouldn't want to go on record accusing the military of faking his friend's death. "He'll talk," Rourke said. "He saw what he saw. That kind of thing doesn't leave you. Seeing and testifying are different. Testifying gets you court-martialed or worse. We need leverage." She pulled out a folder, different than the one from the diner, thicker, more photos, more documents. "Moss served with your son in 2nd Battalion 7th Marines. They deployed together. Afghanistan, Helmand Province, 2016. Your son saved his life during a patrol that went bad. Pulled him out of a burning vehicle after an IED strike." She showed him a photo. 2 Marines, younger, covered in dust and blood and the particular exhaustion of men who've just survived something they shouldn't have. Ethan on the left, Moss on the right, arms around each other's shoulders, barely smiling. He owes Ethan, and if he knows Ethan might still be alive, he'll talk. Rourke took the photo, studied his son's face. 20 years old in this picture. 3 years before he died or didn't die. 3 years before everything went wrong. The kid in this photo looked confident, capable, the kind of Marine who pulled friends from burning vehicles and asked ethics questions and probably would have made a good officer if they'd given him the chance. Headlights swept across the cabin wall. Engine sound. Heavy vehicle. Rourke's hand went to his sidearm before he consciously decided to move. Sarah was already at the window. "It's Brennan." The vehicle was a Ford F250, civilian plates but military posture. It stopped next to Rourke's sedan, and a man got out who moved like every Delta operator Rourke had ever known. Efficient, economical. Nothing wasted. Commander Jack Brennan looked exactly like he had 3 years ago, except for new lines around his eyes and gray creeping into his temples. He wore jeans and a jacket that probably concealed a weapon, and the expression of a man who'd driven 9 hours thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. He came through the door without knocking. Saw Rourke, nodded once. Saw Sarah. Extended his hand. "Captain Vance, we've never met officially." "No, sir, but I know who you are." David talked about you, about how you stayed with him while I worked on him and the bird. Brennan's face did something complicated. Not quite pain, not quite guilt, something that lived between the two. He should have gotten a medal for what he did. Instead, he got erased. A lot of people got erased, Sarah said. That's why we're here. She spread the maps on the table, explained the plan. Fort Benning, Moss, the testimony they needed. Brennan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he looked at Rourke. This is going to burn both our careers. You know that? I know. They'll come after us, threaten us, probably try to kill us. I know that too. And you're still doing this. It wasn't a question, but Rourke answered it anyway. My son is either dead or he's been in a cell for 2 years being used for intelligence extraction. If he's dead, I want the truth on record. If he's alive, I want him back. Either way, I'm doing this. Brennan nodded, pulled out a phone. Not a burner. His regular cell. He powered it down, pulled the battery, set both pieces on the table next to the maps. Then we do it right. We don't just get testimony. We get evidence, documentation, everything we need to force an IG investigation so thorough they can't bury it even if they kill us. Sarah was already pulling out more files, more photos, more documents that looked like they'd been copied from classified databases by someone with access they shouldn't have had. I've been collecting for 4 years. Medical records, transfer orders, after-action reports with sections redacted, flight logs showing CIA extraction teams operating in zones where no CIA teams were supposed to be. It's all here, but it's circumstantial. We need witnesses, 3 minimum. More if we can get them. Who else besides Moss? Brennan asked. I have a list. 17 potential witnesses across 11 cases. People who saw things they weren't supposed to see. Medics, pilots, unit members. Most of them were transferred immediately after. Some were given promotions and cushy assignments in exchange for silence. Some were threatened. 2 are dead. She pulled out photos of 2 men, both young, both in dress uniforms, both with funeral photos next to their service portraits. Corporal James Diaz witnessed a training accident involving Specialist Kevin Park. Park was listed as dead. Diaz saw him breathing when they loaded the body. Diaz died 6 months later in a car accident. Single vehicle, drove off a bridge in North Carolina at 3 in the morning. Second photo, Staff Sergeant Linda Chen. No relation to David, she was a flight medic, transported 3 different soldiers who were listed as KIA, but were alive when she got them. She started asking questions, started documenting. She died in a house fire 8 months ago. Electrical fault according to the report. Except she was an electrician before joining the Army. Her house was 2 months past a safety inspection she'd done herself. Rourke looked at the photos, at the dates of death, at the pattern that emerged when you laid them side by side. People who witnessed Echo 7 accidents and then died in their own accidents shortly after. They're cleaning up witnesses. They've been cleaning up witnesses for years, Sarah said, which is why we move fast. Get the testimonies, get them on record with the Inspector General's office. Once they're official, killing us doesn't kill the investigation. Brennan was studying the map again. Moss is at Benning. That's 12 hours from here. If we leave now, we get there around noon tomorrow. But they'll be watching the main gate, watching anyone who tries to contact him. We don't go through the main gate, Rourke said, and we don't contact him on base. He pointed to a section of the map outside the installation boundary. A town, small, the kind of place that exists because a military base exists and would dry up if the base ever closed. We find out where he goes off duty, bar, gym, wherever soldiers go when they're not being soldiers. We approach him there, civilian setting, no cameras, no official record. Sarah pulled out her phone. Not a burner, a tablet. Pulled up social media, started scrolling. Give me 5 minutes. She worked in silence. Brennan and Rourke waited. Old operators know how to wait. How to stand still while someone else works. How to not fill silence with words that don't need to be said. After 4 minutes, Sarah turned the tablet around. Tyler Moss, public Instagram, posted 2 days ago at a place called Ranger Joe's, bar in Columbus. Posted last week from the same place. Week before that, same place. He's a regular. The photo showed Moss with 3 other soldiers, civilian clothes, beers on the table, laughing at something off camera. He looked older than the photo from Afghanistan, harder around the edges, but the same person. We hit Ranger Joe's tomorrow night, Rourke said. Make contact, explain the situation, get his testimony. And if he refuses, Brennan asked, then we remind him what Ethan did for him in Helmand Province. And we tell him Ethan might still be alive. And we ask him what kind of man he wants to be. They drove through the night in 2 vehicles. Brennan's truck in front, Rourke's sedan behind. Sarah switched between them every 2 hours to stay alert and to make sure no one vehicle looked like it was traveling with purpose. By dawn, they were in Georgia. By mid-morning, they'd found a motel outside Columbus that didn't ask questions and took cash and had rooms in the back where you could park without being visible from the road. Rourke slept for 3 hours. Combat sleep, the kind where your body shuts down but part of your brain stays on watch. He woke to sunlight through cheap curtains and the sound of Sarah's voice in the next room talking on her phone. He couldn't make out words, but he could hear the tone. Urgent, worried. He got up, knocked on the connecting door. Sarah opened it. Her face told him everything before she said a word. They took my daughter. The room tilted, not physically, but the way reality tilts when something you feared becomes something you're living. When, 4 hours ago, my mother called, said 2 men in suits came to the house. Federal agents, showed badges, said there was a credible threat against Sarah Jr., and they needed to take her into protective custody. Your mother let them? She didn't have a choice. They had a court order, signed by a federal judge, looked legitimate. By the time she called me to verify, they were gone. Sarah sat on the bed, put her head in her hands. When she looked up, her eyes were dry, but her voice was shaking. Kline has her. He's using my daughter to make me stop. Rourke had seen this play before, seen it run on targets overseas, seen it run on assets who got too close to information they shouldn't have. Take the thing they love most. Make them choose. The mission or the person. The truth or the life. Most people choose the life. We get her back, Rourke said. How? We don't even know where they took her. Brennan appeared in the doorway. He'd been listening. He had his phone out. The one he'd pulled the battery from. He was putting it back together. We make them tell us. He powered on the phone, waited for it to boot, opened his contacts, found a number, hit dial, put it on speaker. It rang twice. Then a voice Rourke didn't recognize. Male. Professional. The kind of professional that works in offices with classified clearances and makes decisions about other people's lives. Commander Brennan, I was wondering when you'd call. Colonel Kline, you know why I'm calling. I imagine it has something to do with Captain Vance's daughter. Lovely girl, 8 years old, likes horses and ice cream according to her grandmother. Currently in protective custody at a secure location while we investigate potential threats to her safety. Sarah lunged for the phone. Brennan caught her wrist, held her back, kept his voice level. There are no threats to her safety. You manufactured this. I manufactured nothing. Captain Vance has been collecting classified information for 4 years, sharing that information with unauthorized personnel, putting lives at risk, including her own daughters. We're simply ensuring the child's safety while we determine the extent of the breach. I'm protecting national security. If Captain Vance wants her daughter back, all she has to do is turn over every document, every file, every piece of evidence she's collected. Then she signs a non-disclosure agreement. Then she goes away quietly. Her daughter comes home. Everyone's happy. Sarah grabbed the phone from Brennan. You son of a... Captain Vance, before you say something you'll regret, understand that your daughter is perfectly safe. She's being well cared for. She thinks this is an adventure, federal agents protecting her from bad people. She trusts them, and as long as you cooperate, she'll continue to be safe. But if you persist in this investigation, if you continue to collect evidence and recruit witnesses and threaten operational security, then I can't guarantee her safety. Accidents happen, even to children in protective custody. The threat hung in the air like gas, invisible but lethal if you breathed it. You have 12 hours to decide, Kline continued. Meet me at these coordinates. Bring every file, every document, every piece of evidence. Come alone, trade the evidence for your daughter. Or don't come at all, and she stays in custody indefinitely while we determine if you're fit to be her parent. He rattled off GPS coordinates. Sarah was already writing them down with shaking hands. 12 hours, Captain. I suggest you use them wisely. The line went dead. Sarah looked at the coordinates, at Rourke, at Brennan. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap, Brennan said. But he's not lying about having your daughter, which means we have 12 hours to get her back. How? He'll have a team, armed, professional. We go in there, we're dead. Rourke took the paper with the coordinates, studied them, pulled up a map on his burner phone. The location was an hour south. Interstate rest stop. Public place but isolated. Easy to control. Easy to disappear people from if things went wrong. He's expecting you to come alone. Expecting you to trade the evidence for your daughter. Expecting you to be emotional and desperate and sloppy. I am emotional and desperate, but you're not sloppy and you're not alone and we're not trading anything. He looked at Brennan. We need a team. I can have 4 guys here in 6 hours, retired Delta, people I trust. Do it. Tell them it's a rescue operation. Tell them it involves a child. Tell them we're going up against federal contractors who won't hesitate to shoot. Brennan was already dialing, walked out of the room with the phone to his ear. Rourke turned back to Sarah. You still have the evidence? The real evidence? Encrypted cloud storage. 3 separate servers. Even if they kill me, they can't access it without the passwords. Good. We're going to use that. We're going to make Kline think he's getting what he wants. And while he's focused on you, we're going to take your daughter back. And then what? He'll just come after us again. He'll keep coming until we're dead or buried or both. Then we make sure he can't come after us. We get your daughter. We get Moss's testimony. We file with the Inspector General. And we do it all in the next 12 hours before Kline realizes he's lost control of the situation. Sarah looked at him like she was trying to decide if he was crazy or confident. That's not a plan. That's a suicide mission. It's what we have. You want a better option? I'm listening. She didn't have one. Neither did he. Sometimes the only plan is the impossible one because the possible ones all end with you dead or defeated. Brennan came back. Team's rolling. ETA 6 hours. They're bringing equipment, weapons, comms, everything we need for a tactical extraction. We need more than extraction, Rourke said. We need a distraction, something big enough to pull Kline's attention away from the actual play. He spread the map on the bed, pointed to the rest stop where the exchange was supposed to happen, then pointed to a location 3 miles north. An abandoned factory according to the satellite view. Old, isolated. The kind of place you could stage something without witnesses. Sarah makes contact, tells Kline she's ready to trade, but she wants proof her daughter is safe first. Video call, she needs to see her. He won't go for it, Sarah said. He will if you're desperate enough. And you are desperate. Sell it. Make him believe you'll do anything to get her back. When he shows you she's safe, you tell him you need 30 minutes to gather the evidence. You've got it stashed nearby, but you need time to retrieve it. And while I'm stalling, we locate where he's actually holding your daughter. He won't bring her to the exchange point. Too risky. She'll be somewhere close but separate. A vehicle. Another building. Somewhere he can control. Brennan was following now. We find her, extract her, get her clear before the exchange even happens. And when he realizes we have her, we're already gone. Sarah shows up to the exchange with fake evidence. USB drive full of encrypted junk that'll take them hours to realize is worthless. By the time they crack it, we're already in front of the Inspector General with Moss's testimony. Sarah looked at both of them. This assumes we can find where he's holding her. Assumes we can extract her without getting caught. Assumes everything goes perfectly. Nothing ever goes perfectly, Rourke said. But we don't need perfect. We just need good enough to get your daughter out alive. They spent the next 6 hours planning. Brennan's team arrived at 1400. 4 men, all former Delta, all carrying the particular kind of casual lethality that comes from 20 years of doing the hardest jobs the military has to offer. They didn't ask many questions. Brennan had given them enough over the phone. Child extraction, federal contractors as opposition force. High risk. They'd all done worse. The oldest one, a man named Garrett with gray hair and a scar across his jaw, spread out satellite imagery of the rest stop and surrounding area. If I'm holding a hostage, I'm keeping her mobile. Vehicle, SUV probably, tinted windows, 2 guards minimum, parked somewhere with multiple exit routes but within visual range of the exchange point. He circled 3 possible locations on the map. Here, or here, all have line of sight to the rest stop, all have quick access to the interstate. We recon all 3, find which one he's using, neutralize the guards, extract the girl. Whole thing should take 90 seconds if we do it right. And if we don't do it right, Sarah asked. Garrett looked at her with the kind of directness that doesn't comfort but doesn't lie either. Then people get shot. Hopefully not the little girl, but that's why we do it right. At 1800 hours, Sarah made the call, put it on speaker so everyone could hear. Kline answered on the first ring like he'd been waiting. Captain Vance, I'm pleased you're being reasonable. I want to see my daughter, video call, right now. I need to know she's safe before I bring you anything. Pause, 3 seconds. That's acceptable. Stand by. The line clicked. 30 seconds later, a video call request came through. Sarah answered it. The screen showed a little girl, 8 years old, brown hair, wearing the same clothes she'd been wearing when the men took her, according to the description Sarah's mother had given. She was sitting in what looked like a hotel room. Clean, comfortable. 2 men in suits standing behind her just out of frame, but visible in the mirror on the wall. Mommy! Sarah's voice cracked. Hey, baby, are you okay? Are these men treating you nicely? They're nice. They said you're busy with work, and I get to have an adventure. We had McDonald's for lunch, and they let me watch cartoons. That's good, sweetheart. That's real good. Mommy's gonna come get you very soon, okay? Just a few more hours. Okay, I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby. The screen shifted, showed Kline's face now. He was somewhere else. Office maybe, institutional lighting. As you can see, she's perfectly fine. Now let's discuss the exchange. Sarah gave him the coordinates he'd given her earlier. I'll be there in 2 hours. I need time to gather the evidence. It's not all in one place. 2 hours is acceptable. Come alone. Bring everything, phones, tablets, any device that might have copies. And Captain In, if I detect any surveillance, any backup, any attempt at a tactical solution, your daughter stays in protective custody and you face federal charges. Understood? Understood. The call ended. Sarah sat there staring at the blank screen where her daughter's face had been. Rourke put a hand on her shoulder. We saw her. We know she's alive and safe. Now we go get her. Garrett was already marking the map. Hotel room, generic. Could be anywhere within a 50-mile radius. But they'll move her before the exchange. Bring her closer to have leverage if things go wrong. We need to be in position before they move. They'll move her 90 minutes before the exchange, Brennan said. Standard protocol. Close enough to use as pressure, but far enough to abort if they detect a threat. Which means we have 30 minutes to get in position. They loaded into 2 vehicles. Brennan's truck and a van one of the Delta team had driven down. The van had equipment, rifles, tactical gear, communications equipment, the kind of hardware you couldn't explain if you got pulled over, but wouldn't need to explain if you didn't. Rourke rode with Garrett and 2 others whose names he'd learned were Price and Castellano. Both younger than Garrett, but old enough to have multiple deployments on their resumes. They didn't talk much during the drive, just checked weapons and reviewed the plan and maintained the particular kind of quiet that comes before violence. The rest stop appeared 90 minutes before the exchange was scheduled. Sarah had already arrived, parked in the lot, sitting in her car, visible, waiting, playing her part. Garrett's team was 2 miles north in the abandoned factory. 3 potential parking locations for a hostage vehicle. They'd recon all 3, find the right one, execute. Rourke was with them. Brennan had argued he should stay back. Let the professionals handle the tactical work. But Rourke had pulled rank and experience, and the simple fact that this was his operation and he wasn't sitting in a van while other people risked their lives. They moved through the industrial ruins like smoke, quiet, efficient, spread out in a formation that covered angles and maintained visual contact without clustering. The first potential location was empty, just an old loading dock and some trash. The second showed tire tracks, but no vehicle. The third location was a parking structure. 3 levels, concrete, half collapsed on the north side but still standing on the south. And on the second level, barely visible from the ground, an SUV, black, tinted windows, government plates. Garrett signaled a halt, pulled out binoculars, glassed the vehicle for 30 seconds, handed the binoculars to Rourke. 2 men, both in suits, both armed, visible through the front windshield. The rear windows were too dark to see through, but the vehicle was running. Climate control for whoever was in the back. That's our target, Garrett whispered. Price, Castellano, you take the guards. Non-lethal if possible, but put them down hard and fast. Rourke and I extract the girl. Brennan, you're our wheel. Bring the van to the base of the structure. We'll come down the southwest stairwell. Everyone nodded. No questions, no discussion, just acknowledgement and movement. They approached from the east, used the collapsed section as cover, climbed to the second level using rebar and broken concrete like a ladder. The SUV was 60 feet away now. The guards were watching the approach road. Not watching their six. Classic mistake. Everyone watches the threat they expect. No one watches the threat they don't. Price moved first, came up behind the driver's side, tapped the window with his knuckles. The guard turned, saw a man in tactical gear, started to reach for his weapon. Price broke the window with a tactical baton, reached through, caught the guard's wrist before he could draw, pulled him halfway out the window and put him in a chokehold that went from alert to unconscious in 4 seconds. Castellano took the passenger side the same way. Different technique. Opened the door, pulled the guard out, hit him twice. Once in the solar plexus to fold him, once behind the ear to finish it. The guard dropped. Castellano zip-tied his wrists and ankles, dragged him behind a concrete pillar. Rourke moved to the rear door, tried it, locked. He could see movement inside now. Small, child-sized. He knocked on the window. Gentle, not threatening. Sarah? Sarah, it's okay. Your mom sent us. We're here to take you home. The window cracked open 2 inches. A little girl's face appeared. Scared, but trying to be brave. Where's my mommy? She's waiting for you, but we need to go now, okay? Can you unlock the door? She disappeared for a second. Then the lock clicked. Rourke opened the door. Sarah Jr. was sitting in the back seat with a toilet and a bag of chips and the kind of confusion that comes from adults lying to you about adventures that aren't adventures. We need to go fast, sweetheart. Like a game. Can you be very quiet and very fast? She nodded. Rourke picked her up. She weighed maybe 50 pounds. He held her against his chest, started moving toward the stairwell. Garrett covered their exit. Price and Castellano secured the guards. Brennan's van appeared at the base of the structure exactly on time. They were loading Sarah Jr. into the van when Rourke's burner phone buzzed. Text from Sarah, 3 words. They're here early. Rourke checked his watch. The exchange wasn't supposed to happen for another 45 minutes. But Kline had moved up the timeline. Classic counter-surveillance. Change the schedule. See if the target panics. See if backup reveals itself. He texted back, "We have your daughter. Abort. Get out of there." The response came immediately. "Can't. They're blocking my car. 4 vehicles, at least 8 men. They know something's wrong." Garrett was already reading over Rourke's shoulder. "She's blown. They'll take her, interrogate her, find out about us. Then we go get her." That's not the plan. Plans change. Rourke looked at Sarah Jr. in the van. Safe. Scared, but safe. Her mother was 2 miles south, surrounded by federal contractors who just realized their leverage was gone and their operation was compromised. People in that situation made bad decisions, fatal decisions. Brennan, get the girl somewhere secure, somewhere Kline can't find her. Garrett, you're with me. We're getting Sarah. That's suicide. We don't have surprise anymore. They'll be ready. Then we better be readier. They took Brennan's truck, left the van with Sarah Jr. and 2 of the Delta team to keep her safe, drove south toward the rest stop faster than was smart, but slower than Rourke wanted. Garrett was in the passenger seat, loading magazines and checking his rifle with the kind of methodical calm that suggested he'd done this before. Done it a lot. "You know this is probably going to get us killed." "Probably," Rourke said. "And you're doing it anyway." "She's got a daughter. Daughter needs her mother. I've got experience with kids losing parents. Don't recommend it." Garrett nodded, chambered around. "All right then, let's go not die." The rest stop came into view. Sarah's car was surrounded, 4 SUVs, black, tinted windows, at least 8 men visible. All armed, all positioned in a perimeter that would make approach difficult and escape impossible. Sarah was still in her car, hands visible on the steering wheel. Smart. Don't give them a reason to shoot. Rourke parked the truck 200 yards behind a semi-trailer that blocked line of sight. He and Garrett got out, stayed low, used vehicles as cover, worked their way closer. One of the men approached Sarah's car, knocked on her window. She rolled it down. He said something Rourke couldn't hear from this distance. She shook her head. He said something else, louder. She kept shaking her head. Then he opened her door, reached in, grabbed her arm, started pulling her out of the car. Rourke raised his rifle, found the man in his scope, center mass, steady breath. But Garrett put a hand on the barrel, pushed it down. "You shoot? They all shoot. She's dead in the crossfire. So what do? We give them something else to shoot at." Garrett pulled out his phone. Dialed, put it on speaker. A voice answered. One of the contractors near Sarah's car. Rourke could see him reach for his phone. "This is Colonel Marcus Kline. Who is this?" "This is someone who has Sarah Vance's daughter, And unless you let Captain Vance walk away right now, you're never seeing that little girl again. Silence for 3 seconds. Then Kline's voice, colder. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your hostage site. Second-level parking structure 3 miles north. You'll find 2 unconscious guards and an empty SUV. The girl is already gone. Already somewhere you'll never find her. And she stays gone until Captain Vance is safe. More silence. Longer this time. Rourke watched through his scope as one of the contractors talked into a radio. Another one was on a phone, probably calling the hostage site, confirming what Garrett had just told them. You just made a very serious mistake, Kline said. The only mistake here is yours. You thought you could use a child as leverage. You thought wrong. Now here's what's going to happen. Your men are going to back away from Captain Vance's vehicle. She's going to drive away. When she's clear, when she's somewhere safe, we'll discuss terms for returning her daughter. There are no terms. You return the girl now, or I have Captain Vance arrested for kidnapping. You can try, but I don't think you want to explain to a federal judge how you were holding an 8-year-old girl without her mother's consent. I don't think that conversation ends well for you. Kline's voice dropped to something barely controlled. Who are you? Someone who's done with your Echo 7 program. Someone who's going to expose every soldier you've erased. Someone who's going to make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison for what you've done. Big words from someone hiding behind a phone. Not hiding, just positioned. You've got 8 men surrounding 1 woman. I've got a rifle and clear line of sight to 3 of them. You want to test who's better at their job? Colonel, I'm happy to provide that education. Rourke could see the contractors shifting now, looking around, trying to find where the threat was coming from. One of them pointed toward the semi-trailer, started moving that direction. Garrett tracked him with his rifle. Call off your dog, or he's the first one down. Kline must have given an order because the contractor stopped, stayed where he was. You're making enemies you can't afford. I'm making the only choice that matters. Let her go, or this gets loud. Your call. 30 seconds passed. Felt like 30 minutes. Then Kline spoke. Captain Vance, you are free to leave. But understand, this is far from over. I will find your daughter. I will find everyone helping you. And when I do, the consequences will be severe. The contractors backed away from Sarah's car. She sat there for a moment like she couldn't believe it was real. Then she started the engine, put it in gear, drove slowly toward the exit. None of the contractors moved to stop her. Rourke and Garrett stayed in position until she was clear, until her car disappeared down the interstate. Then they backed away, kept their rifles up, maintained overwatch until they reached the truck. They were pulling out when Rourke's phone rang. Sarah, I'm clear. What the hell just happened? Garrett convinced Kline that keeping you alive was worth more than arresting you. And my daughter? Safe. With Brennan. We'll get you to her as soon as we're sure no one's following. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you enough. Thank me by getting Moss's testimony on record. We're running out of time. They met at a different motel. Smaller, cheaper. The kind of place that had probably been involved in enough illegal activity that one more off-the-books meeting wouldn't even register. Sarah's reunion with her daughter lasted 10 minutes of tears and holding and whispered promises that everything was going to be okay, even though nothing was okay and wouldn't be until this was finished. Brennan had food, gas station sandwiches and coffee that tasted like it had been brewed yesterday. They ate in silence. Rourke's phone showed 2,200 hours. They'd been running for 36 hours straight, making decisions on no sleep and bad coffee and the kind of adrenaline that keeps you moving until you stop and then you can't start again. Moss, Rourke said, we still need his testimony. Ranger Joe's. He'll be there tonight if his pattern holds. After what just happened, Kline knows we're still operating, Brennan said. He'll have people watching Moss, waiting for us to make contact. Then we make contact somewhere he can't watch. Somewhere public enough that his people can't move on us without creating a scene. Garrett, who'd been quiet since the extraction, spoke up. I know the bar. Been there a few times when I was stationed at Benning. It's crowded on weekend nights. Loud. Good place to have a conversation no one else can hear. It's Saturday, Sarah said. It'll be packed. Exactly. They left Sarah and her daughter at the motel with Price and Castellano standing guard. Took Brennan's truck. Arrived at Ranger Joe's at 23:15. The parking lot was full, music and voices spilling out every time the door opened. Young soldiers blowing off steam, drinking beer, playing pool. living life like they weren't one bad decision away from ending up on a spreadsheet of erased names. Moss was at the bar, same spot as his Instagram photos, same group of friends, laughing at something on someone's phone. He looked relaxed, happy, the kind of happy that comes from not knowing people are watching you, not knowing your life is about to change. Rourke approached from the side, leaned against the bar next to Moss, ordered a beer he wasn't going to drink, waited for Moss to notice him. It took 30 seconds. Moss glanced over, did a double take, recognition flickering across his face. Major Rourke? Staff Sergeant Moss, we need to talk. Sir, I'm off duty. Whatever this is, it's about Ethan. Moss went still, the kind of still that happens when someone says a name you've been trying not to think about. His friends were still laughing, still oblivious. Moss stood up, nodded toward the back of the bar. 5 minutes. They found a corner booth, dark, away from the crowd. Garrett positioned himself at the bar where he could see the door. Brennan stayed in the truck, watching approaches, ready to move if things went wrong. Moss sat across from Rourke, hands on the table, waiting. You saw something the day Ethan died, something that didn't make it into the official report. Moss looked at his hands. I don't know what you're talking about. His finger moved. When they loaded him into the body bag, you saw it. I saw a lot of things that day, sir. It was chaotic, stressful. Sometimes in situations like that, you see things that aren't really there. You telling me you imagined it? I'm telling you the official report says what happened. Lance Corporal Rourke died from injuries sustained during a training accident. That's what happened. Rourke pulled out the photo Sarah had given him, the one from Afghanistan. Ethan and Moss, brothers in arms. Moss looked at it. Something in his face cracked. He saved your life in Helmand Province. He was a good Marine. He was your friend. Yes, sir, he was. And now he might be alive. Might be in a cell somewhere being used by people who erased him from every record. And you're the only person who can help me prove it. Moss closed his eyes, opened them. If I testify to what I saw, they'll court-martial me, or worse. If you don't testify, my son stays buried, stays disappeared, stays wherever they put him for the rest of his life. You don't know he's alive. I know he didn't die the way they said he died, and I know you know it too. I know you've been carrying that for 2 years. Wondering if you should have said something. Wondering if staying quiet makes you complicit. Moss looked at the photo again, at Ethan's face. Young, alive, smiling in a way people only smile when they don't know what's coming. What do you need me to do? Write down everything you saw, everything you remember. Sign it, date it. I'll file it with the Inspector General tomorrow morning, along with 2 other testimonies. Enough to trigger an investigation they can't ignore. And then what happens to me? I don't know, maybe nothing, maybe everything, but you'll be able to look at yourself in the mirror. You'll know you did the right thing. Moss was quiet for a long time. Music played, people laughed. Life continued around them like this conversation wasn't happening, like the decision Moss was making wouldn't change everything. Okay, he said finally, I'll do it. Rourke slid a notebook across the table, a pen. Write it now, everything. Don't leave anything out. Moss started writing. His handwriting was neat, precise, military training showing through. He wrote for 20 minutes, filled 3 pages. When he finished, he signed his name at the bottom, added his rank and unit, the date, the time. This is everything I remember. Rourke read it, every word. The account matched what Sarah had told him, matched the timeline, matched the pieces that had never made sense in the official report. It was enough. Combined with Sarah's testimony about Chen and Brennan's testimony about the CIA extraction, it was enough to force an investigation. Thank you, Rourke said. Don't thank me yet. You don't know what's going to happen when you file this. I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to fight it, deny it, try to bury it, but they can't bury 3 sworn statements, can't make them disappear without making us disappear. And we're not that easy to disappear. Moss stood, extended his hand. Rourke shook it. He talked about you, you know, before he died or whatever happened. He said you taught him that doing the right thing sometimes costs everything, but it's still worth doing. He believed that? He lived it, sir, right up until the end. Moss walked back to his friends, back to his beer, back to a life that would probably never be the same after tonight. Rourke watched him go. Then he collected the notebook, walked to the front of the bar, found Garrett. We got it. Let's move. They were halfway to the truck when Rourke's phone buzzes. Text from an unknown number. He almost didn't check it, almost kept walking, but something made him look. The message was a photo, not text, just an image. It took Rourke 3 seconds to understand what he was seeing. Then his world stopped. The photo showed a man, thin, bearded, sitting in what looked like a concrete cell, wearing an orange jumpsuit, holding a newspaper. Today's newspaper. The date visible in the masthead. The man's face was older, harder, marked by things Rourke didn't want to imagine. But it was recognizable, even after 2 years, even after everything that had been done to him. It was Ethan. Below the photo, a single line of text. Your son is alive. Sight Osprey, Shenandoah Valley. You have 12 hours to decide what you're willing to trade for him. Kline. Rourke stared at the photo for 10 seconds that felt like 10 years. His son's face, gaunt, eager, but alive, unmistakably alive, sitting in a cell holding today's newspaper like proof of life in a kidnapping negotiation, which is exactly what this was. Brennan appeared at his shoulder, looked at the phone, went completely still. Jesus Christ, it's really him. Sight Osprey, Rourke said. His voice sounded distant even to himself, like he was hearing someone else speak. Shenandoah Valley, 12 hours. Garrett had the truck running before Rourke finished the sentence. They drove in silence, not the comfortable silence of operators who trust each other, the heavy silence of men processing information that changes everything. Rourke kept looking at the photo, zooming in, studying details, the concrete walls, the fluorescent lighting, the newspaper's date, all of it real. All of it confirming what part of him had known for 2 years but couldn't prove. His son hadn't died in that training accident. They'd taken him, used him, kept him alive in a cell for intelligence purposes. And now they were offering him back like he was a negotiable asset instead of a human being, instead of someone's child. It's a trap, Brennan said. Has to be. Kline's using Ethan to bait you into giving up the testimonies. You show up, he takes the evidence and disappears both of you. I know it's a trap, and you're going anyway. He's my son. Brennan didn't argue. Couldn't argue. If their positions were reversed, Rourke wouldn't have argued either. Some decisions transcend tactical sense, transcend logic. You make them because the alternative is something you can't live with. They reached the motel at midnight. Sarah was awake, sitting at a small table with her daughter asleep in the bed behind her, 3 sworn testimonies spread out in front of her, hers, Brennan's, Moss's, everything they needed to trigger an Inspector General investigation. Everything they'd risked their lives to collect. Rourke showed her the photo. She looked at it for a long time, then at him. When do we leave? We don't. I leave. This is my son, my problem. Your problem is my problem. David is still out there. 35 others are still out there. We expose Kline, we save all of them. Or we walk into his trap and he buries us along with the evidence. Sarah gathered the testimonies, put them in a folder, handed it to Garrett. If we're not back in 24 hours, you file these with the IG. You give copies to every reporter you can find. You make sure this gets exposed even if we're dead. Garrett took the folder. You're serious about this? Dead serious, pun intended. You know this is probably a suicide. Better than living with myself if I don't try. Rourke checked the time. 11 hours and 40 minutes until Kline's deadline. Sight Osprey was in the Shenandoah Valley, approximately 6 hours north, which gave them 5 hours to plan an approach to a facility they'd never seen, holding an unknown number of prisoners guarded by an unknown number of contractors. We need intel, Brennan said. Satellite imagery, floor plans, guard rotations, something. Rourke pulled up the coordinates on his phone, ran them through every database he had access to. Nothing showed up. No facility, no building, no notation, just forest and mountains and empty terrain that officially had nothing worth noting. It's off the books, black site, not on any map because it doesn't officially exist. Then how do we even know where we're going? We follow the coordinates, we recon when we get there, we adapt. It wasn't a plan, it was barely a concept, but it was all they had. Brennan made calls, got the rest of his Delta team moving north, told them to bring everything. Rifles, night vision, breaching equipment, body armor, the kind of loadout you bring when you're assaulting a hardened facility and you don't know what's waiting inside. They left at 0100, 2 vehicles, Brennan's truck in front with Rourke and Sarah, the van behind with Garrett, Price, and Castellano. Sarah's daughter stayed at the motel with a retired Delta operator named Martinez, who'd arrived an hour earlier. Ex-Marine, sniper, the kind of man you trust to protect children because he'd spent 20 years protecting nations. The drive north was dark highway and distant mountains and the kind of pre-dawn quiet that makes you think about mortality, about choices, about whether what you're doing is brave or stupid or some combination of both. Rourke kept looking at the photo of Ethan, kept thinking about 2 years in a cell, 2 years of interrogation, 2 years of wondering if anyone was looking for him, if anyone even knew he was alive. The photo showed a man who'd survived, but survival and living weren't the same thing. You could survive and still lose pieces of yourself that never grew back. Tell me about him, Sarah said. She was in the passenger seat, looking out at darkness, not looking at Rourke, making it easier to talk. About Ethan. Yeah, what was he like before all this? Rourke had to think about it, not because he didn't remember, because remembering hurt and he'd gotten good at not doing it. But Sarah had shared her daughter, had put her child at risk to help him. The least he could do was share his son. He was good, not perfect, good. Stubborn like his mother. Asked questions like I did. Wanted to fix things, wanted to make things right. When he was 16, kid at his school was getting bullied. Ethan stood up for him, got suspended for fighting, came home expecting me to be angry. I told him sometimes getting suspended is the right choice if you're standing up for someone who can't stand up for themselves. Sounds like you raised him right. I raised him to have a conscience. Turns out that's dangerous in a world that prefers people who follow orders. He joined the Marines anyway. He believed in service, believed you could change things from inside, make the system better. I should have warned him that systems don't change. They just find new ways to protect themselves. They drove in silence for a while. Sarah eventually spoke again. If this works, if we get him out, he's going to be different. 2 years in a cell changes people. I know. And if it doesn't work, if we don't make it out, at least we tried. That's supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be true. Sometimes truth is the best we get. Dawn came slowly, pink light filtering through mountain ridges. They were in Virginia now. Shenandoah Valley spreading out below them. Beautiful country, the kind of place people vacation. Hike, take photos. Not the kind of place you expect to find a secret prison. The coordinates led them off the main highway, onto a state road, then a county road, then a fire access road that probably wasn't meant for civilian vehicles. They parked 2 miles from the coordinates, covered the vehicles with camouflage netting, moved forward on foot. The facility appeared at 0630. It wasn't much to look at. Old military hospital from the photos Rourke could find on historical databases. Decommissioned in 1962, supposed to be abandoned, but the fence line was new, chain link with razor wire, security cameras on poles, and 2 guard towers that definitely hadn't been there in 1962. Garrett glassed it with binoculars from a ridge 800 meters out. 4 guards visible, 2 on the towers, 2 patrolling the perimeter, probably more inside. The building's 3 stories. Windows on the first 2 floors are barred. 3rd floor looks administrative. Main entrance on the south side, service entrance on the north. Probably more entrances we can't see from this angle. Thermal? Brennan asked. Garrett switched to thermal optics. Scanned the building. 15 heat signatures, maybe 20. Hard to tell with the interference from the old infrastructure. Could be guards, could be prisoners, could be both. How do we even get inside without triggering every alarm they have? Rourke was studying the terrain. The facility sat in a small valley, forested on 3 sides. Open ground on the 4th, classic defensive position, hard to approach without being seen. But the forest came within 200 meters on the north side, and the service entrance Garrett had mentioned was on the north side, which meant the easiest approach was also the most obvious one. We don't avoid the alarms, we trigger them on purpose. Everyone looked at him. Explain, Brennan said. Kline's expecting me to show up, expecting me to try to trade for Ethan. We give him what he wants, or make him think we're giving him what he wants. I approach from the south, main entrance, visible, expected. While they're focused on me, you breach from the north. Get inside, find the prisoners, extract Ethan. That's a terrible plan, Sarah said. You have a better one? She didn't. None of them did. Sometimes the terrible plan is the only plan. I'll need something to trade, Rourke continued. Something that looks valuable enough to be the testimonies, but it isn't. Garrett, you got a laptop in the van? Yeah, why? Load it with encrypted files, junk data, make it look classified. I'll offer it to Kline as proof I'm cooperating. While he's verifying what I gave him, you make your move. Brennan was shaking his head. Even if that works, Even if we get inside and find Ethan, getting out is going to be loud. They'll lock down, call for backup, we'll be trapped. Then we better move fast. They spent the next hour preparing. Garrett loaded the laptop with encrypted files. Government-looking documents with official seals and classification markings that would take someone hours to realize were fake. Sarah checked weapons, made sure everyone had full magazines and spare ammunition. Price and Castellano mapped exfiltration routes, found 3 possible escape paths if things went wrong. When everyone was ready, Rourke walked to the tree line alone, looked at the facility, at the guard towers, at the windows where his son might be watching, might be hoping someone was coming, or might have given up hope years ago. He pulled out the burner phone, sent a text to the number Kline had used to send the photo. "I'm here, I have what you want. Let's make the trade." The response came in 30 seconds. "Main entrance, 30 minutes, come alone and unarmed." Rourke texted back, "How do I know my son's alive? How do I know you'll keep your word?" "You don't, but you're out of options and out of time. 30 minutes, Major. Don't be late." Rourke pocketed the phone, checked his sidearm. It was still there. He wasn't going in unarmed no matter what Kline demanded. Going in unarmed was the same as going in dead. Brennan appeared beside him. "You don't have to do this. We can assault the facility, all of us, together, and risk them executing prisoners the moment they realize they're under attack? No. This way they're focused on me, focused on the trade, gives you a window. A window that closes the second they realize you're running at a con. Then I'd better sell it. Make them believe I'm desperate enough to trade everything for my son. Shouldn't be hard. I am that desperate." They synchronized watches. Rourke would approach in 15 minutes. Give Kline time to position his people. Get comfortable. Get focused on the main entrance. 5 minutes after that, Brennan's team would breach the north side. Fast, violent, overwhelming. Standard Delta tactics applied to an unconventional target. Rourke walked toward the facility. Open ground. No cover. Every step feeling like he was walking toward a rifle scope. The guards saw him when he was 300 meters out. One of them spoke into a radio. The other raised binoculars, watched him approach. At 100 meters, a voice called out, amplified, coming from speakers Rourke couldn't see. "That's far enough, Major. Stop where you are." Rourke stopped, raised his hands, showed he was carrying the laptop case and nothing else visible. "I have what you want. Let me see my son." First the device. Slide it forward. First, proof of life. Real proof, not a photo. I want to see him, hear his voice. Silence for 10 seconds. Then movement at the main entrance. The door opened. 2 men came out, both armed, both flanking a third figure who moved like he hadn't walked in a while, like his legs had forgotten how. Even at 100 meters, Rourke recognized him. The way he stood, the way he moved. Details that don't change even when everything else does. Ethan. They'd cleaned him up since the photo, shaved his beard, given him clean clothes. Probably wanted him presentable for the trade. Make it look like they'd been treating him well. Make it easier to justify whatever story they'd tell about his release. One of the guards grabbed Ethan's shoulder, stopped him 20 feet from the door. Close enough for Rourke to see, but far enough to maintain control. "Ethan." Rourke's voice cracked on the name, not acting, real emotion breaking through. Ethan looked up, squinted against the morning sun. His eyes had that hollow look, the kind that comes from seeing things you can't unsee, from losing pieces of yourself in dark rooms where no one can hear you. "Dad?" One word, but it was his voice, weak, uncertain, but his. "I'm here, son. I'm getting you out." Colonel Kline's voice came through the speakers again. "Touching reunion. Now the device, Major. Slide it forward and we'll discuss terms." Rourke set the laptop case on the ground, slid it forward 10 feet. One of the guards jogged out, picked it up, carried it back inside. Kline would open it now, start examining the files, start the verification process that would take at least 5 minutes. 5 minutes for Brennan to make his move. Rourke checked his watch, 3 minutes until breach. He needed to keep Kline talking, keep him focused. "What did you do to him?" "Nothing he didn't survive. Your son is resilient, strong. He gave us useful information about several operations, information that saved American lives. You tortured him. We debriefed him thoroughly, as we do with all subjects who have intelligence value." Subjects, not soldiers, not people. Subjects, the language of men who'd convinced themselves they were serving a greater good, who'd made peace with darkness by calling it duty. The testimonies on that laptop will end your career. End Echo 7. Expose everything you've done. Perhaps, or perhaps they'll disappear along with you and your son and everyone who helped you. We're very good at making things disappear, Major. We've had a lot of practice. 2 minutes. Inside the facility, Rourke could hear movement. Doors, voices, Kline examining the laptop. Probably had a tech team analyzing the files. Would take them a few minutes to realize the encryption was designed to waste time, to look legitimate while revealing nothing. 1 minute. How many others are in there? How many soldiers have you disappeared? Enough to keep America safe. You think this is about cruelty? This is about necessity. Men like your son, they see things in the field, things that can't be made public, things that would compromise ongoing operations. We give them a choice: cooperate quietly or disappear quietly. Most choose cooperation. And the ones who don't, they disappear less quietly. 30 seconds. Rourke could see Ethan still standing in the doorway, still guarded, still watching with those hollow eyes. He wanted to run to him, wanted to grab him and get him out of there. But running now would get them both killed. He had to trust Brennan, trust the team, trust that training and experience in brotherhood would be enough. 15 seconds. The explosion came from the north side, not huge. Shaped charge, designed to breach a door without bringing down the building. The guards in the towers spun toward the sound, started yelling into radios. The guards at the main entrance pushed Ethan back inside, raised their weapons. Rourke was already moving, drew his sidearm as he ran 50 meters to the entrance. The guards were turning back toward him, raising rifles. He fired twice. Center mass. Both guards dropped. He kept running. Inside the building was chaos, alarms, shouting, gunfire from somewhere deeper in the structure. Brennan's team was engaged. Rourke moved through corridors he didn't know towards sounds he did, the sound of operators doing what they were trained to do. He found them on the second floor. Brennan and Price holding a hallway while Garrett worked on a locked door. Steel, reinforced. The kind of door designed to keep people in. Prisoners? Rourke asked. 15 cells, we've cleared 12, 3 more behind this door. The lock gave. Garrett pulled the door open. Inside was a corridor lined with cells. Concrete, bars, minimal light. Each cell held a figure, some sitting, some standing, all watching the door like they didn't believe what they were seeing. Rourke moved down the line, looked at faces, young, old, all wearing the same hollow expression Ethan had, all carrying the weight of however long they'd been here. The last cell held his son. Ethan was standing at the bars, gripping them, looking at Rourke like he was trying to decide if this was real or another hallucination. Dad? It's real, son. I'm here. We're getting you out. Garrett was already working on the lock. 5 seconds. The door swung open. Ethan stepped out, wavered. Rourke caught him, held him upright. His son felt lighter than he should, thinner, like they'd been feeding him just enough to keep him useful. Can you walk? I can run if you need me to. We need you to. Gunfire erupted from the stairwell. Closer now. Kline's people were responding, coordinating. Brennan was already moving back toward the breach point. We've got company, multiple hostiles. We need to move now. Price and Castellano were freeing the other prisoners. 14 men in various states of health. Some could run, some could barely walk. None of them were going to be left behind. They moved as a group, slow, too slow. Rourke half-carried Ethan. Brennan and the team provided overwatch, fired controlled bursts at shapes appearing in doorways, kept the enemy suppressed while civilians extracted. The north exit was ahead, 20 meters, 15. Garrett was almost there when the hallway behind them exploded. Not literally, but close. Flashbang, smoke, then figures in tactical gear pouring through. Professional, coordinated, more than the team could handle while protecting prisoners. Go, Brennan shouted. Get them out. We'll hold here. Rourke wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight, but he had Ethan, had responsibility, had a mission that didn't end until his son was safe. He ran. The exit led to forest, trees, cover. Rourke could hear the team behind him, still firing, still fighting, buying time they might not have. Sarah appeared from the tree line. She'd been covering the exfiltration route, had her rifle up, providing overwatch. How many? 15 prisoners, 3 team members still inside holding the exit. We need to get these people to the vehicles. Then we come back for the team. They moved through the forest, single file, prisoners in the middle, armed operators on point and rear. Standard formation, nothing fancy, just getting people from danger to safety as fast as possible. The vehicles were a mile away, felt like 10. Every step expecting gunfire, expecting pursuit, expecting this to be where everything fell apart. They reached the vehicles at 0745, loaded prisoners into the van. Ethan in the truck with Rourke. Sarah took the wheel. Brennan? Still inside. We're going back. No, we're getting these people clear, then we come back. Rourke was torn. Every operator instinct said you don't leave people behind. But every father instinct said you protect your child first. And right now, Ethan was his child. Alive. Free. Still in danger until they were miles away from this place. The decision was made for them. Brennan's voice crackled over the radio. We're clear. Moving to Rally Point Bravo. ETA 5 minutes. Rally Point Bravo was a mile west. A clearing they designated as backup if the primary exfiltration failed. Rourke directed Sarah. She drove like she'd done this before. Fast but controlled. Using terrain, avoiding main roads. They found Brennan's team at the rally point. All 3 of them. Alive. Breathing hard. Price had blood on his sleeve but was moving okay. Garrett was reloading. Brennan was on the radio calling in a medevac for the prisoners who needed immediate medical attention. Casualties? Rourke asked. 2 hostiles are down, none of ours. We got lucky. Kline? Gone. Evacuated before we even breached. Left his people to fight and ran. We found his office, files, computers. Sarah's downloading everything now. Sarah was already at a terminal in the van. USB drive is pulling data. This is it. This is everything. Echo 7 protocols, names, dates, locations, medical records, transfer orders, all of it. How long to download? 3 more minutes. Those 3 minutes felt like hours, every second expecting helicopters, expecting reinforcements, expecting Kline to return with overwhelming force. The download finished. Sarah pulled the drives, encrypted Tim, handed one to Garrett. That's your insurance. If anything happens to us, you know what to do. I know. They split up. The van with the freed prisoners headed to a VA hospital 3 hours south. Brennan would handle the explanations, the logistics, the paperwork that would follow when 15 supposedly dead soldiers showed up alive. Rourke took Ethan in the truck, just the 2 of them, drove north instead of south, away from facilities, away from officials, away from anyone who might ask questions before Ethan was ready to answer them. They drove for 2 hours before Ethan spoke. I thought you were dead. They told me you died in a car accident 6 months ago. Told me no one was looking for me because no one knew I was alive. Rourke's hands tightened on the wheel. I knew. I didn't know where you were, but I knew you didn't die in that training accident. I've been looking for 2 years. Mom? She's alive, remarried, living in Arizona. I haven't told her yet. Wanted to wait until you were ready. Ethan was quiet for a long time, looking out the window, watching trees pass. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. I don't know if I'm the same person she knew. You're not. 2 years in a cell changes people. But you're still her son, still my son, and we'll figure out the rest together. They stopped at a diner outside Harrisburg. Small place. Quiet. Rourke ordered coffee and eggs. Ethan ordered the same but barely touched it. Just held the coffee cup like he was trying to remember what normal felt like. They wanted names, contacts. Everyone I'd talked to about Echo 7, everyone who might know what they were doing, I gave them names, made some up, gave them real ones when I had to. You survived. That's what matters. People might be dead because of what I told them. People are definitely dead because of what Kline did, what they did. You were a prisoner. You did what prisoners do. You survived. Is that supposed to make it okay? It's supposed to be true. Sometimes truth is all we get. Ethan almost smiled. Sarah said the same thing. She's smart, and she's the one who gave me the first piece of evidence. The one that started all this. Her half-brother was David Chen. He's still alive. Still in the system somewhere. We're going to get him out too. Get all of them out. How many? We freed 15 today. There are 20 more in other facilities. We've got their locations now. We've got evidence. We've got testimonies. Tomorrow we file everything with the Inspector General, with Congress, with the media. We make this so public they can't bury it. And then what happens to us? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But we'll face it together. They finished their coffee, drove another hour, found a motel that didn't ask questions, paid cash, Rourke got 2 rooms, told Ethan to sleep. Actually sleep. Not the kind of sleep you do in cells where you're never really unconscious. He went to his own room, pulled out his phone. The burner was dead, but he still had the photo. The one of Ethan in the cell. He looked at it one more time, then deleted it. That version of his son was gone now. Free. Whatever came next would be different. Harder, probably. Definitely complicated. But free. His phone rang. Not the burner. His regular phone that he'd left powered off for days. He'd turned it back on an hour ago. Checking messages. Checking what he'd missed. Sarah's voice. You need to turn on the news. He found a TV. Turned it to CNN. The headline was already running. Breaking. Defense Department. Black site scandal. 15 soldiers found alive years after being declared dead. The anchor was reading from a statement. The Inspector General's office had received evidence of illegal detention. Secret facilities. A program called Echo 7. Names were being released. Families were being notified. Congressional hearings were being scheduled. Rourke's phone rang again. Brennan this time. Did you file already? Didn't have to. Turns out one of the prisoners we freed was a Marine intelligence officer. Soon as we got him to the hospital, he called his commanding officer. His commanding officer called the Secretary of Defense. Everything moved fast after that. Where's Kline? In custody. FBI picked him up 3 hours ago at Dulles trying to board a private flight to Dubai. No extradition treaty. He was running. Now he's facing federal charges. Kidnapping, unlawful detention, obstruction of justice. The list is long. And the others, the CIA officers involved? Being investigated, but it goes high. Deputy Director level. Senate Intelligence Committee is already asking questions. Rourke sat on the bed. Watched the news cycle through the story. Photos of the freed prisoners. Photos of the facility. Graphics showing the Echo 7 program timeline. 12 years, 47 soldiers. All of it laid out for the public to see. His phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. David's being extracted tomorrow. Site in West Virginia. FBI is handling it. He'll be home by the weekend. Another text from a number he didn't recognize. This is Tyler Moss. Saw the news. Thank you for not letting me stay quiet. My testimony mattered. Another from Garrett. We did good, boss. Real good. The news was showing families now. Parents, spouses, children, all learning their loved ones were alive. All crying, all trying to process 2 years or 5 years or 10 years of grief that suddenly had a different ending. Rourke thought about his own ending, about Ethan in the next room, alive, free, damaged but recovering. He thought about the choice he'd made, opening that manila envelope, following the evidence, risking everything. It had cost him his career, his reputation, almost his life, but it had bought something more valuable, the truth and his son. He turned off the TV, walked to Ethan's room, knocked quietly, no answer, opened the door. Ethan was asleep, actually asleep, breathing steady, face relaxed in a way it probably hadn't been in 2 years. Rourke stood there for a moment, just watching, just being grateful. Then he closed the door, went back to his room, sat on the bed with his phone. He opened his messages, found his ex-wife's number, typed slowly. Call me when you can. It's about Ethan. Good news. He sent it, put the phone down, lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, thought about everything that had happened, everything still to come. Trials, testimony, media, questions he'd have to answer, questions Ethan would have to face. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, his son was safe. 15 other soldiers were safe. The truth was public. The program was exposed. Kline was in custody. Sometimes the impossible plan works. Sometimes you fight the system and win. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything and gives back more. His phone rang. His ex-wife. He almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail because explaining this over the phone was going to be impossible. But she deserved to know, deserved to hear it from him. He answered, Jennifer, before you say anything, I need you to sit down. Jim, what's going on? I saw the news, the soldiers, the black site, your name was mentioned. I'm fine, I'm safe, and there's something you need to know. What? He took a breath, said the words he'd been waiting 2 years to say. Ethan's alive, he's here with me, he's safe, he's home. The silence on the other end lasted 5 seconds. Then crying. Not sad crying, the other kind. The kind that comes from hope you'd buried being resurrected. I'm coming, where are you? He told her. She said she'd be there by morning. Said she was leaving right now. Said don't let him out of your sight. Said I love you. Meant it in a way she hadn't meant it in years. Rourke sat there after she hung up. Sat there in a cheap motel room in Pennsylvania with his phone in his hand and his son in the next room and the weight of 2 years lifting. Not gone. The weight never completely goes. But lighter, manageable. The kind of weight you carry because it reminds you what you fought for, what you won. He thought about the 47 names on that spreadsheet. 15 were free. 20 more would be soon. 12 were actually dead. But their families would get the truth now. Get closure. Get to grieve properly instead of living with lies. The echo had stopped. The program was dead. The men who'd run it would face justice. It wasn't perfect. Justice never is. But it was enough. Rourke's phone buzzed one more time. Text from a number he didn't recognize. For a second, he thought it might be Kline, might be a threat, might be the program coming back to finish what it started. But it wasn't. The message was simple. 3 words. Thank you, David Chen. Rourke typed back. Thank your sister. She's the one who started this. The response came immediately. I will, when I see her tomorrow. Tomorrow. Chen would see his sister tomorrow. Ethan would see his mother tomorrow. 15 families would see their sons and daughters and husbands and wives tomorrow. All because someone opened a manila envelope and decided truth was worth fighting for. Rourke turned off his phone, turned off the light, lay in the dark listening to the sound of his son breathing in the next room. A sound he'd thought he'd never hear again. Sleep came eventually, not the combat sleep, not the restless half-consciousness of a man on watch. Real sleep, deep. The kind that comes from finishing something, from crossing a finish line you weren't sure existed. When he woke, sun was streaming through the window. His phone showed missed calls, messages. The world had kept turning while he slept. The news cycle had kept cycling. But in this room, in this moment, things were still. He heard movement from Ethan's room. His son was awake, getting up, starting a day that was the first day of the rest of his life, the first day he'd lived as a free man in 2 years. Rourke got up, got dressed, walked to Ethan's door, knocked. Yeah? Your mom's on her way. Should be here in a few hours. Silence, then I don't know what to say to her. You don't have to say anything. Just let her see you. Let her know you're real. More silence. Then the door opened. Ethan stood there in the doorway, still thin, still marked by what he'd survived, but standing, present, here. Thank you for not giving up on me. Rourke put a hand on his son's shoulder. Never. I'd have searched until I found you or died trying. I know. That's what kept me going. Knowing someone out there was looking, even when they told me no one was. They stood there for a moment. Father and son, survivor and rescuer. 2 men who'd both been through hell and made it out the other side. Outside, cars were pulling into the parking lot. Jennifer's car. Rourke recognized it. She'd driven through the night, hadn't waited, hadn't stopped. Just drove because her son was alive and nothing else mattered. She got out, saw them through the window, started running. Rourke opened the door, stepped aside, let her through. She grabbed Ethan, held him, cried into his shoulder, said his name over and over like she was trying to make up for 2 years of not being able to say it. Ethan held her back, awkward at first, like he'd forgotten how, then tighter, like he was remembering. Rourke stepped outside, gave them space, pulled out his phone, saw messages from Brennan, from Sarah, from the IG's office requesting an interview, from reporters requesting comments, from his former commanding officer requesting an explanation. He'd deal with all of it, answer questions, give testimony, face whatever consequences came from breaking protocol and assaulting a federal facility and making the biggest scandal in Defense Department history. But not today. Today, he'd let his son reunite with his mother, let families heal, let the truth settle. Tomorrow would bring courts and hearings and the machinery of justice grinding forward. But today was for the people who'd won, the people who'd survived, the people who'd refused to let lies become truth. Rourke looked at the sky, clear, blue, the kind of morning that makes you believe things can get better, that truth can win, that sometimes the good guys don't finish last. His phone rang. Sarah, you see the news? Some of it. They're talking about the Presidential Medal of Freedom for the whistleblowers, congressional testimony for all of us, documentary deals, book deals. Everyone wants to tell the story. Let them, as long as they tell it true. They will. We've got the evidence. We've got the witnesses. We've got the bodies to prove it. How are you doing? Better. Sarah Jr. asked about the adventure. I told her the truth, told her the bad men are in jail, told her the good men won. She believes me. She should, it's true. They talked for a few more minutes, made plans to meet, to coordinate testimony, to make sure the story stayed consistent as it moved through investigations and hearings and public scrutiny. When they hung up, Rourke stood there in the parking lot of a cheap motel in Pennsylvania and thought about the last 3 days, thought about how it started with a manila envelope, how it ended with freedom. He thought about Major James Rourke, JAG investigator, father, man who decided truth was worth everything. He thought about the 47 names, the 15 who were free, the 20 who would be soon, the 12 who couldn't be saved but could be honored. He thought about Echo 7, about programs like it, about systems that protect themselves by sacrificing people, about men who convince themselves darkness is duty. And he thought about what comes next, about building something better, about making sure this never happens again, about teaching the lesson that needed teaching. Some truths cost everything to expose, but they're worth it, because truth, once free, can't be buried again, can't be erased, can't be disappeared. The door opened behind him. Ethan and Jennifer came out, together, her arm around his shoulder, him leaning on her like he was remembering what family felt like. Where do we go from here? Jennifer asked. Rourke looked at them, at his son, alive, free, home. Forward, he said. We go forward. And they did. This one hit different. Spent weeks researching black site protocols and echo programs. The reality is darker than fiction. What would you do if the military told you your son died, but you found proof he's still breathing in a cell somewhere? Major Rourke made a choice most fathers only face in nightmares, but here's what haunts me. We freed 15 soldiers in this story. How many real names are still buried in classified files? Drop your thoughts below. And if this story earned your time, there are more untold missions waiting. Hit subscribe, you won't regret it.